Hi, I'm Joe Firestone, your host, and this is Progressive Short Takes. There's still some degree of admiration for the Swedish model. Some people who think the Swedes have managed the COVID crisis successfully, at least on the healthcare side, that they've managed it successfully, that they're one of the successful countries. Well, they've done better than the United States. They've done better than many other countries, but I don't think they should be anybody's standard of success. Let's look at the Worldometer site. Let's see where Sweden stands as of now on the Worldometer site. They're 36 in the world. If we neglect two of the pocket countries with very, very low populations, they're 34th in the world. Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't gotten the rating, that I need to get here. Actually, I was wrong. They're now 23rd in the world. In other words, 23rd worst country in the world in fatalities per million. Of course, their population is only 10,126,722. Their deaths per million are 711. Now, that's better than a lot of countries. It's better than the United States, which is now up to 880 deaths per million. Currently, that's the current figure for the United States. We just passed Argentina, and neglecting the same two small countries, we are now number 9. We're behind Slovenia. They're at 896. And behind the UK at 912. There have been a number of admiring things people have been saying about the UK recently. They're at 912 deaths per million. That has to be the primary indicator of success or failure. I mean, ultimately, did your country keep you alive, or did they not? Okay. Now, there's Bosnia Herzegovina, even worse, at 942. And Northern Macedonia at 949, Spain at 998, there's Italy at 1,014, Peru 1,095 deaths per million, and Belgium, number 1, at 1,497. So Sweden is doing pretty well compared to Belgium, less than 50% the fatality rate. Okay, Belgium, they're doing well compared to the United States at 711 deaths per million compared to 880 deaths per million. But of course, that kind of picture is extremely incomplete. They're doing nowhere near as well as the other Nordic nations that are geographically and culturally the closest to them. Specifically, let's try to get to Denmark here. They're very often compared to Denmark. So Denmark has 155 deaths per million, between 1/5 and 1/6. I guess it's roughly 1/5 of what Sweden has. They've had a rough time of late, comparatively rough time. Then we get to Finland, they're 76 deaths per million. Get to Norway, where they're at 66 deaths per million. Where is Iceland? Iceland, of course, is a pocket country. Population just a few 100,000. They're at 82 deaths per million in Iceland. And even these countries, okay, even the other Nordic countries, are not doing what I would say was very well. If we jump to Australia, they have only 35 deaths per million. But even that is not doing as well as a country can do. Comparatively speaking, it is not doing well. Japan is at 19 deaths per million. 126 million population in Japan. That's more than a third of our population. They have only 2,382 total deaths. If we were like them, we would have had only 6,000 total deaths compared to, well, we're approaching 292,000, and we'll most probably, within a couple of days, be at 300,000. So there it is. On this indicator, Sweden is not at all doing well. Sweden's a relatively small country, only 10 million people. There are larger countries that are doing much better than Sweden. South Korea has 51 million people. It has 11 deaths per million. Doing 3 times better than Australia. South Korea isn't even an island. Isn't even an island. It's a peninsula. Of course, there's Singapore, only 5 deaths per million. And also New Zealand. They both have smaller populations than Sweden. 5.9 million for Singapore, 5 million for New Zealand. And New Zealand, of course, has only 5 deaths per million. But that's still far from the best. There are nations doing 10 times better than that. For example, Vietnam, 4/10 of a fatality per million. They have 97 people in Vietnam. Just a little less than a third of the number of people we have. 4/10 of a fatality per million. Only 35 total deaths. If we were like them, we'd have a little more than 100 deaths. And then, of course, there's Taiwan. For me, the paradigm case of a country that really managed it wonderfully and whose economy is totally open at this point. 3/10 of a fatality per million. Only 7 total deaths. If we had managed it in the way they had, we would have had only 100 deaths from COVID-19. So the United States is a miserable failure. But Sweden's a miserable failure too. Just not as miserable as the United States. So the Swedish model is not to be admired. In fact, the Swedish model and the United States model and the model of many other countries similar to both of us is to be shunned. So, thank you for coming to this progressive short take. I'm out for this one. I'll be back soon with another one. Thank you for coming.